As Nigeria reflects on its participation in the recently concluded Paris Olympics, critical questions have emerged regarding the return on investment and the broader economic impact of the country's performance on the global stage. While some athletes shined, analysts suggest there is room for improvement in aligning financial resources with outcomes, particularly in areas like talent development and world-class training facilities. The economic benefits of Nigeria's Olympic participation may not be immediately evident, but the potential for long-term gains, especially in national branding, could be significant. Well, for more on this, I'm now being joined by Abiodun Dominic Odunuga, the CEO of Bridge and Value France. Abiodun joins me from Paris. Abiodun Dominic Odunuga, thank you so much for joining me on Channel's Business Global. The dust has settled. The memes are doing their rounds on social media as to be expected. I think I saw that Botswana filled their national stadium to welcome home their Olympic champions. How would you evaluate Nigeria's overall performance in Paris? I know you were fortunate enough to spend some time with the team there.
Yeah, thank you, Juliana, for having me. I think I'll take a cue from the Honorable Minister of Sports Development, Senator John Eno. In his own words on social media, he said that the overall performance of the country falls short of objectives, expectations, and hopes. So I think it was really disappointing outing. And of course, it's not news that, on a personal level, I felt Nigeria just came to mark attendance, right? So they call you roll call. Paris Olympics 2024, Nigeria, here we are, present sir, present man. Who could have done better? Research has shown that there are many factors that would contribute to a country winning a gold medal or medals at large. And one of that is the individual talents. We do have talents, right? And this speaks to the athletes' training, dedication, effort, and experience. But the other part also has to do with the country level factor. And this speaks, for instance, to population. Research has also shown that the pool of potential athletes who can compete at a world-class level is bigger in countries that have a bigger population. It's part of the contributing factor. Plus 200 million people, for crying out loud, who could have done better. And also, of course, national investments. People's ability to reach their athletic potential has to do with very high-level investment into world-class facilities. The Honorable Minister mentioned that for these Olympics and Paralympics, about 12 billion was earmarked for this. And so I think on a global level, aside some individual or team effort like the Tigers, the female basketball team, who did break a record, on a larger scale of things, I think it was a poor outing, and we should have done better.
Abiodun, how do you see the relationship between sports performance and national branding? I've just come back from the States, and my goodness, you couldn't walk 100 meters without seeing huge billboards of Simone Biles, Sha'Carri Richardson. Here in the United Kingdom, all of the advertisements have been about the Olympic champions. Clearly, it's working. Why don't we do that back home?
Very, very, very good question. I think on a personal level, before I even go to the national, part of branding that helps us as a people, as a country, I've traveled across the world, and I said to some of my friends that I think as celebrities or successful athletes or sports persons have done me greater good. For instance, as far as France to Brazil, I've traveled to those parts of the world, and you just mentioned I'm a Nigerian, and then the local person goes like, I love JJ Okocha. Do you know him? And then friendship is born.
Yeah,
that's on a personal level. So you can imagine what leverage succeeding at the Olympics would have done for branding. Just recently, a few days ago, Financial Times had to do a report on the gold medalist on Tebogo, on how much he's done for his country. In the same article, while they're projecting his accomplishment as a gold medalist, they still touched on Botswana's mining industry. And so the idea around leveraging on such platforms to be able to rebrand our country is, cannot be emphasized. I was recently, we got in contact, a French major media group wrote to our association in France and was asking us to talk about protest. That's about a few days ago, and tell us about protest in Nigeria, bad governance. we declined the offer. I mean, when we checked it inside with my colleagues, majorly for one reason. We told the French group, right, that when we have good stories to tell, you don't give us the audience about investments in Nigeria, but you tell us talk about protest. And living in France for 10 years, I can tell you when it comes to protest, France should be
Of
number
course,
one.
they're the leaders of the world in that.
Get the gold medal. I mean, just leave Nigeria.
Absolutely.
But that doesn't actually now, ignore the reality.
Yeah.
Inflation, poverty, youth unemployment, economic hardship. These are realities. These Olympics would have been an opportunity beyond the success of our athletes. What this would have meant for the country would have been a spotlight placed on other important sectors. People will be curious enough to know what's happening around this country. If foreign investment would have been the course of the day, there would have been some level of spotlight on the creative industry, from movie, Nollywood doing so well, so even our innovation ecosystem. So I think we didn't miss a rebranding opportunity. And unfortunately, we have to wait for the next 4 years in Los Angeles to have a second chance at this.
Absolutely, we do have to wait 4 years, although there are so many sporting events coming up that hopefully we can leverage on before that. Really good points from you, by the way, Biodun. We're running out of time, but I've got to get this final question to you. What about the private sector? Do you think that, us armchair commentators, especially when it comes to sport, we're all a gold medalist commentator when it comes to watching the athletes. It takes so much hard work and dedication, doesn't it? But we're constantly blaming government, we're constantly blaming ministers, and we say the ministry should be doing more. What about the private sector? Do you think banks and businesses such as yours should be doing more? And how can they be incentivized to help the success of brand Nigeria overall?
Yeah, I think the private sector really does have a role to play. Olympics, if you also look at the maths, you see loads of private engagements, running the show. So on the Nigerian end, but I think the problem really has not been that private sector lacks the willingness. They have a love language across board, whether in Asia, in Africa, wherever. I mean, private sector speaks to profits, return on investments. That's their love language. The government needs to do two things. Maybe one, sort of have a pioneer status, which means grants incentives that allows companies who invest heavily in infrastructural projects in the sports sector have a 3 to 5 years corporate tax exemption. That's a way to get them to put their money where their mouth is. Number two, also reduce tax, right? So that automatically would allow more private sector to be able to come into the value chain, like you mentioned, from marketing to talent management to media to sport agencies. There's a whole huge value chain that's quietly still undertapped in Nigeria. And I think if the government can at least, like we say, create the enabling environment, don't just tell them, come invest, allow them to invest properly, and then we'll see more private sector interest follow suit.
Yes, good points there. Abiodun Dominic Odunuga, who is the CEO of Bridge and Value France. He wears many, many other hats. He's also an entrepreneurship consultant to the French government and the Nigerian government. Thank you so much for your time and expertise today, Abiodun.
Thank you for having me, Juliana.
Thank you.